Welcome to Insight Builder channel. Design CrewAI flows with unit tests. Convert business requirement to unit tests and design flows. This is part 13 of multi-part series on CrewAI. What we will discuss in this video? We will look at a demo test execution that is already executed. I'll be showing you the output. We will discuss why unit test, what are the benefits. We will discuss a brief questionnaire on coding the flow. Second, we will look at an example design requirement, which is actually the answer for this questionnaire. We will be reviewing the crews and the flow execution after that in the code. Before we dive into the code execution, if you visit my playlist on CrewAI, you will find that there is already a discussion on how to think in terms of tasks and flows with CrewAI, where I discuss about the mindset that you need to build before you execute the agents and the tasks, before you design the agents and the tasks, and also the flows. Here, we are going one step further and we are going to build multiple outcomes, not just one outcome. So that is the difference when it is going to be about building or converting the business requirement to unit tests and designing flows. Here, I have already executed the test case. The 3 test cases that I have executed is with 3 different user queries. The first user query is asking for writing a Python function which gets executed, and you will see that we are getting the output as status code returned to the file. This is the kind of an output that I'm looking for when this flow, the write code flow, executes. Then comes the next question, the user query. Analyze the file at .analyzer test.py. This analyzes the file's content and it returns the content of that file. So if I go down, you'll see that the content has been returned to me and the status is updated. That status analysis done. Finally, there is a very different kind of a user query which is not linked with coding or analyzing. This becomes an other intent, and the output is pretty simple. It's using the same format, but instead of status, it's giving me a message telling that no further action taken for other intent. These are basic dictionaries that I want as an output. Right now, you might be getting the idea of why testing is important. Right? I did not have to execute those 3 queries one by one. First thing, I was able to decide what kind of output I need. That is the second thing, the dictionary. Third, if I was planning to do a test-driven development, that setup will be one of the best setup to begin with. I can actually start asserting each and every part of the flow. And importantly, I did not show something here. You can detect unexpected recursions. We have seen the demo right now, and we have seen why unit tests. Next, we will look at the questionnaire before you design the flow. First important question you need to ask is how many outcomes are required. If you look at the test demo that I ran just a moment ago, I had 3 major outcomes. One outcome is to have the code written to a file. Another is to analyze a file that is given to the flow. And third is an intent that is not clear, meaning it's not linked with the analysis or code output. How these outcomes look on execution. Once it is executed, what will be the output? The status and the messages that you saw. Decide how many crews are required. Once you know these 2 things, the outcomes and the outcome structure, then you can decide how many crews are required to get that structure. You will then decide what will be the output of each crew. you see what is happening. We are boiling down from the top, from the output of the flow, correct? And we will decide how the tasks will create the output, which tools are required, which agents are required to do the tasks, and finally which LLM can we choose. The entire flow from the top to the bottom, literally this questionnaire can be used for any of the crews and the flows that you're going to build. Right. Now let us look at an example design. The same design that you saw a moment ago. These are the questions and the answers. So how many outcomes are required? So I decided that 3 outcomes are required. And the 3 outcomes are write code, analyze file, and the third one is the other outcome. How many crews? As of now, I think 3 crews will be more than sufficient. So I will be creating 3 crews, one to classify the intent, one to provide an analysis of the file that I give it to it, and the third I will be using it for solving problems, because the problem solving crew will write the code. What will be the task output format? Here you can see that I have created pedantic models or classes, data classes that has the output and along with the type. This decision that we make ahead of time in a flow chart like this can be very crucial. There are other class diagramming processes that you can use. In fact, there is very good online tools also. But I prefer using Excalidraw, and it is much more fluent, and it also keeps your creativity going. As you can see here, I can have these kinds of flowcharts here, and then bring these kinds of good-looking code fonts also. So you can get both best of both the worlds. Next, proceed. What kind of tools are required? In this case, I just need a file reader tool. You might be still wondering how the code is going to be written to a file. We will be using a simple Python write option to write the code to the file. You don't need a file writer tool for that. You are going to write the code to the file system, and you are going to use the flows for that. You don't need to use the agents to write the file. That is one of the benefits of working with the flow. You will be seeing that in action. That's one of the major benefits that I figured it out. Which agents you will require? So these are the 4 different agents that you will require: code writer, file analyzer, path finder, because we will give the path, the file path as a query, and the agent has to detect that path and use it in the next step for analyzing the file. And we will have the intent extractor. And which LLMs? We can choose among the best LLMs available. At this moment, easily integrated LLMs are OpenAI, Anthropic, and Grok. Grok is pretty much free. OpenAI and Anthropic have very good models, GPT 4.0 and Cloud Sonnet. You guys have to try that out. I'll be using Anthropic, but in case of CrewAI and most of the agentic related packages, nowadays LLMs are just a commodity. You don't need to worry. Even most of the LLMs are working almost similarly. So you can choose any LLM that you prefer. Next, what you are going to do. We have seen the questionnaire before, coding the flow and example design requirement. And next we will review the crews and then the flows. So let us go to the code. Each and every crew can have its own test cases also. You don't need to only write the test cases for the final flow. This is also one thing that I realized as I started coding. Each and every crew can have its own test cases. And why I am actually talking about test cases is you can integrate these outputs on any kind of system that you want. If you are going to build a front end, if you are going to integrate it with your IDE, name it. You can do that. And that's how people are building these complex flows, agents, and tasks, right? You have to begin with the business outcome and the solution that you're going to provide. So let us start with the coder crew. That is the first crew that I would prefer to work with. Here I am already having a file writer tool, but I'm not going to use it. So if I plan to use this file writer tool, but then I decided to offload it to the flow. Then we have the agent here. When it comes to the agent, I am just making it as a problem solver agent, and I am giving it an LLM. As you see here, I am using the Claude Haiku model. The code data base model is what I showed you in the Excalibur flowchart, right? The same data class I am creating here using Pydantic. And in the code gen task, I am mentioning in the line number 29, you can see the output Pydantic is equal to code data. So this is how I am forcing this agent to give me a code in form of string. Why this is required, I will show it to you once I go to the flow. I'll be completing this and I will go to the flow and I will show where this code generator crew is used. Here I have already written a data write agent which is using a file writer tool, which was creating a lot of challenge for me. The file writer tool was unable to, the LLM was first of all unable to get the code from the earlier step, the agent step, and it was unable to hand it over to the file writer in a proper fashion, and it was continuously calling the LLM to get the things sorted out. Both Claude, GPT-4o was creating a lot of challenges, and in that process I was losing a lot of tokens. Then it struck me that I don't need to actually use the file writer tool and I can write it using the flow option. So I'll be showing that. So here I have used only the code gen agent and code task agent. Keep in mind that all this crew, coder underscore crew, the intent finder underscore crew, and the file analyzer crew, all are modules. You have to, if you are going to test the crew, then you need to test the crew below this if dunder name equal to dunder main. This is wrong. I need to change it. Dunder main. So when I am going to execute this file as a Python file, then I need to call this code gen underscore crew.kickoff. But if not, if I'm just importing this file, then I should not call this kickoff. And you can see in the kickoff, I am trying to only test one file, right? Even this, when I am actually testing this query, then I will be needing the code writer, the file writer tool, and the file writing agent and task, but I'm not going to do that. I'll be showing you now how that is done. In the code writer flow, I've imported the code gen crew. You can see that on line number 5. Ignore the warnings that has come up there. I've created a basic code writer state using the Pydantic base model again. I've inherited that code writer state. We actually will not be using that code writer state that much in this video. I'll be coming to the intent extractor a little later. In the make code method, you can see that I am calling the code gen crew and I am kicking off it with the state.user query. I'll be discussing about the flow execution at the end. You can see here that the output from the code gen crew out is used for writing the file called codegen underscore test.py. And in the file.write, I am using this syntax, meaning I am taking the code output from the crew and I am writing it to the file. So if I open the file right now, codegen test, so you will see that the code has been returned to the file. So this code was created by the test. So if you go back you can see that this is the file that got created, the file data that got created. Let us go back to the flow. You can look at the file names here, and also you can see the file names here also. Let us now continue. Here, after the execution and the file write was successful, I can see the status, that code returned to the file. This status I can use as a JSON output or a dictionary output for the next integration with any of my other systems. So this is one of the important points I wanted to highlight. Second point I wanted to highlight is ensure that the make code method name that you are giving should not be same as this go code term. It should be completely different. I'll be explaining to you why this is the case when we enter into the flow discussion. Let us go back to the intent finder crew right now. After the coder crew, the next crew that we are looking at is the intent finder crew. This crew is pretty simple. This will have the LLM model, again the same LLM model, with the intent of analyzing, with the objective of analyzing the user query intent. I'm not going to dive into this pretty deeply because it's a very simple output that we are looking for, but you can look at the user intent class that I am creating using Pydantic model. The default is other. If the intent is something that it cannot place, then it will be made into a default other. Else the description in the field is that intent of the user query is classified as analyze file, write core or other. Here I am telling clearly to the LLM that there are only 3 choices. So this is how you give the choice to the LLM, to the agent at the backend, right? And I am giving this as a task output Pydantic. You can see it on line number 41, and then that is getting used in the crew. So if I go back now to the flow, the code writer flow, in the beginning of the flow, you see with the start decorator that I am using the intent crew kickoff, which is getting me the intent. Now, the intent that I am getting out from the intent crew output will be as a dictionary, right? So I have to extract the intent key from the dictionary and then assign it to the state.intent. Once I assign it to the state.intent, then only I can use it on the analyze code router. If you guys take a look at my other videos on the code logic routing, if you go to the playlist again, you can see that how the flows can be controlled, how the building blocks can be managed. All these things can help you understand the discussion that we are having here on the analyze code router. This analyze code router is going to look at the intent inside the state, that is self.state.intent. If it is equal to write code, then it is going to return go code. If it is going to be self.state.intent analyze file, then it is going to return go analyze. You might be right now wondering, Kamal, you could have just returned the state directly, and then you could have asked the other methods to listen. The convention is to have a separate return statement with a separate return term. So this is the return statement. 35 is the return statement with the return term go code. Okay, go code is again a string. It's not a Python function or it's not a Python object. It's just a string object. Next, we have seen how the intent analyzer and the crew becomes a part of this flow. What we are going to do is we are going to go into the file analyzer next. So this is the file analyzer crew where the tool, file read tool, is being used, but there are 2 agents here. There is a file path agent which extracts the file path from the user. You can see that I have given the Pydantic model for the file path, and I have told this is the file path to a file. So I am clearly mentioning this in the description of the Pydantic model, Pydantic class, and the task I am using the output as file path. So in this way, I will clearly know that the file pathfinder agent or the file path agent will give me the correct file path. Then comes the analyzer agent, which opens the file, which reads the file that is given based on the path from the earlier agent. Once it reads, it gives me the analysis content of the file. You can see the content analysis Pydantic base model. By now, you must be understanding how simple it is once you are clear on what is the final outcome that you want. Every part of this code can be logically traced to why it is there. Next, proceed. So we see analyzer task. So this is the task which is going to give me the analysis output. And you can see that output Pydantic is content analysis. That is the Pydantic class that I used. And finally, we have the crew, which is using both file path agent or the pathfinder agent along with the analyzer agent and their respective tasks. It is going to be processed sequentially. And again, it's a module, right? So let us go back. In case the user query is calling for analyzing the file, then it is going to return go analyze in the analyze code router method, and it is going to go to go analysis. Okay, this is wrong. You have to say make analysis here. This is a mistake that you should not make. You cannot make the term inside the listen and inside the flow same. Okay, try to make it as different as possible so that you don't get into recursion. This can actually cause recursion because the flow in CrewAI is kind of a finite state machine, which is using the inspect module in Python to find out the various methods. You may not be, this might be confusing to you a bit, but just keep it in mind and try to check what the inspect module does in Python. You will be able to get some idea. In the read analyze crew, you can see that it is kicking off with the query, user query. And then we are looking at the printing the analysis here. We are just simply printing it. And then after that, we are saying the status of the analysis is done. We are not trying to write anything here to the file. We are just printing it to the display. All these things will make sense once you actually build something with a different module in Python. If you are trying to use it with Fast API, or if you are trying to build a TK-inter GUI, if you are trying to use this inside to send the output to a front-end system, those time understanding the printing, understanding the return statements, etc. becomes very crucial. We have the error also. If there is an error, we can accept it and catch it. And finally, we have the go other or something else method, which only sends the message output. And below you can see that in the code writer flow module itself, I have tried to do some testing where I have to create 3 different user query lines, out of which 2 has been commented out. I have to manually uncomment each of them and try to do the testing, which is also avoided. So I am doing the automated testing using the test code writer. This is one of the benefits of writing the test cases. If you go back, now we have gone through all this. So we have went through the test execution, why unit test, questionnaire, the questionnaire before coding, and the example design requirement that you saw at the bottom, and along with that the flowchart that was created. And we looked into the crews and also subsequently looked at the flow execution. In each of the crews, we looked at how the data classes, Pydantic data models were created for each of the task outputs and how they were integrated with the agents, and then with the crew, and then with the flow. We reviewed all the parts of it. I believe that this video would be a very good introduction to the entire process of converting a business requirement into a design and code of CrewAI flows. and then finally unit test them. I believe that this video was helpful. Do leave a like and subscribe to my channel. With that said, I would like to leave this video with 4 words: be curious, be curious. See you guys. Have a great time.